When silence speaks volumes. The crystal spires of Nexus Prime stretched toward the binary stars, their surfaces reflecting the light of 1,000 different worlds. Within the central tower, representatives from 847 different civilizations gathered for the monthly session of the Galactic Prosperity Alliance. The Great Hall buzzed with the voices of beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel, conquered diseases, and built cities that spanned entire moons. Ambassador Velthar adjusted his ceremonial robes as he reviewed the agenda on his holographic display. As a member of the Xanathi Confederacy, one of the founding members of the GPA, he commanded respect from virtually every other representative. His people had been exploring the galaxy for over 12,000 years, and their wisdom in matters of galactic politics was rarely questioned. The morning session dealt with routine matters. Trade disputes between mining consortiums, requests for technological assistance from developing worlds, and the endless paperwork of managing a galactic civilization. Velthar found his attention wandering as Representative Korex argued about shipping routes through the Andromeda approach. These meetings had become predictable over the centuries. Dr. Kethvar sat in the observer section, tablet in hand, reviewing the latest reports from the Galactic Survey Division. As the GPA's chief xenobiologist, she was responsible for monitoring primitive worlds and ensuring that developing species weren't interfered with before they achieved spaceflight on their own. It was important work, but rarely exciting. Her tablet chimed softly, indicating a priority message from one of the automated monitoring stations. She opened the file and frowned at the data. The readings were from Sector 7G Minor, a small yellow star system that housed a species the GPA had designated as early industrial development. The energy signatures were unusual, showing spikes that didn't match the species' known technological level. Kethvar stood and made her way to Ambassador Velthar's seat. Protocol required that any unusual readings be reported to the appropriate council representative, though she expected this would be filed away with hundreds of other minor anomalies. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I need to report some unusual energy readings from one of the quarantine systems." Velthar glanced up from his notes. "Which system?" "Sector 7G Minor. The inhabitants call themselves humans. Our long-range sensors detected energy spikes that don't match their expected development pattern." Velthar's expression showed mild annoyance. "Humans? Those are the primitives who still use chemical combustion for transportation, correct? The ones who haven't even achieved fusion power?" "Yes, Ambassador, but these readings suggest they might be experimenting with some form of exotic energy manipulation." "Exotic energy?" Velthar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Dr. Kethvar, those creatures have barely learned to split the atom. They're still fighting wars over fossil fuel deposits and arguing about whether their planet's climate is changing. The idea that they could be working with exotic energy is absurd." Kethvar tried again. "The readings are quite clear, Ambassador. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases for a species at their development level." Velthar turned in his seat to face her fully. "Doctor, I've been monitoring primitive species for over 3 centuries. Do you know what these energy spikes usually indicate? Weapons testing. These humans are obsessed with creating bigger and better ways to destroy each other. If they're generating unusual energy readings, it's because they're building more powerful nuclear weapons." "But Ambassador, the signatures don't match nuclear." "The humans are a textbook example of a species that will never achieve galactic civilization," Velthar interrupted. "They have all the aggressive instincts necessary for technological development, but none of the wisdom to use those instincts properly. Look at their history. War after war, environmental destruction, social inequality. They're more likely to destroy themselves than to develop interstellar travel." Kethvar felt frustrated but knew better than to argue with the senior ambassador. "Should we increase monitoring of the system?" "Absolutely not. We have limited resources, Doctor, and they should be focused on species with actual potential. The Kolvari are on the verge of developing faster-than-light theory. The Mirtak have achieved quantum computing and are beginning to understand dimensional mathematics. These are species worthy of our attention." Velthar pulled up a holographic display showing the current development status of various worlds. "The humans show none of the social or technological markers that indicate potential for galactic citizenship. Their political systems are chaotic, their economic models are unsustainable, and their scientific progress is incredibly slow. Most civilized species achieve fusion power within 50 years of splitting the atom. The humans have had nuclear technology for over 70 years and still haven't built a working fusion reactor." What if we're wrong? Kethvar asked. What if they achieve some kind of breakthrough? Velthar's laugh was sharper this time. Then I'll personally welcome them to the galactic community. But that won't happen, Doctor. I've seen dozens of species at the humans' level of development. The successful ones show clear patterns of social evolution, international cooperation, and sustained scientific advancement. The humans show none of these patterns. He gestured toward the display showing Earth. Look at their world. They've divided it into arbitrary territories and spend enormous resources maintaining military forces to fight each other. They've polluted their own atmosphere and oceans while arguing about whether it's a problem. They've had the technology to feed their entire population for decades, yet millions still starve because of political and economic inefficiency. Kethvar realized this conversation was going nowhere. I'll file the report as low priority. Mark it as routine monitoring, Velthar corrected. And note that the Xenathi Confederacy considers Sector 7G Minor to be of minimal strategic or scientific interest. We'll review their status again in 50 years. As Kethvar returned to her seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The energy readings from Earth were unlike anything she had seen before, and her scientific training told her that dismissing unusual data was never wise. But she was just a xenobiologist, and Ambassador Velthar had 3 centuries of experience with primitive species. Meanwhile, in a converted warehouse in Detroit, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at readings that would have revolutionized galactic science if anyone had known about them. The particle accelerator she had built using salvaged components and military surplus equipment hummed quietly in the background. But what had her attention was the small chamber in the center of the room, where something impossible was happening. For exactly 2.7 seconds, her experimental quantum tunneling device had created a stable spatial fold. For 2.7 seconds, she had connected 2 points in space that were separated by 20 meters, making distance irrelevant. For 2.7 seconds, she had achieved something that every physics textbook said was impossible with current human technology. Run the calculations again, she told her assistant, Dr. James Park, who was still staring at the readouts in disbelief. I've run them 12 times, Elena. The math is solid. We created a micro wormhole. It was small and unstable, but it was real. We sent a photon through it, and it arrived at the detector before we even fired the laser. Elena looked at the equipment surrounding them. Everything was primitive by the standards she imagined advanced civilizations must have. Electromagnetic coils wound by hand, computer systems built from gaming components, and power supplies jury-rigged from industrial welding equipment. Yet somehow, working in complete isolation from any galactic community, they had stumbled onto something revolutionary. What's our next step? James asked. Elena smiled. We scale it up. If we can create a stable tunnel big enough for matter to pass through, if we can control its duration and destination, that's impossible with our current power supply. Then we find a better power supply. Elena's expression carried the determination that had driven humanity from caves to the edge of space in just a few thousand years. James, we're not just building a teleportation device, we're building humanity's future. 3 weeks later, Elena stood before a secret gathering of the world's most brilliant scientists and engineers. Representatives from NASA, CERN, MIT, and dozens of other institutions filled the underground conference room. The existence of this meeting was known to only a handful of government officials, and its purpose was carefully hidden behind layers of classified research projects. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena began, what I'm about to show you will change everything we know about physics, space travel, and humanity's place in the universe. She activated a holographic projector that displayed the mathematical framework for stable wormhole generation. The equations filled the air above the conference table, showing calculations that merged quantum mechanics with gravitational theory in ways that had never been attempted. 6 weeks ago, my team achieved successful quantum tunneling of matter across a distance of 20 meters. The tunnel was stable for 2.7 seconds, which is 2.6 seconds longer than anyone thought possible. Dr. Sarah Kim from the Korean Institute of Technology raised her hand. Elena, this is incredible work, but the energy requirements for anything larger would be astronomical. Not if we approach the problem differently, Elena replied. Instead of trying to force space to bend using brute force, we can use resonance cascade principles to amplify the effect. By creating multiple small tunnels and linking them together, we can reduce the overall energy requirement by over 90%. The room erupted in excited discussion. Dr. Michael Chen from Beijing University was sketching equations on his tablet. Professor Lisa Thompson from Oxford was already working through the engineering challenges. Dr. Ahmed Hassan from Cairo was calculating the potential applications. "This could revolutionize everything," whispered Dr. Park. "Transportation, communication, space exploration. We could reach other star systems without needing massive generation ships." Elena nodded. "But we need to be careful. If this technology exists, if it's been developed before, then there might be other civilizations out there who wouldn't be happy about humanity suddenly appearing in their neighborhood." General Morrison, one of the few military representatives present, spoke up. "Are you suggesting we might not be alone?" "I'm suggesting we should be prepared for any possibility," Elena replied. "We're going to develop this technology in complete secrecy. We're going to test it thoroughly, and we're going to make sure that when humanity takes its first steps into the wider universe, we're ready for whatever we might find." Over the following months, Project LEAP grew from Elena's warehouse laboratory into a global network of hidden research facilities. The brightest minds from every nation worked together on components of the larger project, each group understanding only their small piece of the puzzle. Power generation systems were developed in underground facilities in Iceland. Quantum field stabilizers were built in submarine laboratories off the coast of Japan. Control systems were programmed in secure bunkers beneath the Swiss Alps. The aliens continued their passive monitoring of Earth, recording the same activities they had observed for decades. Radio transmissions filled with entertainment and news, chemical rockets carrying supplies to primitive space stations, and the steady electromagnetic noise of a civilization that hadn't learned to properly manage its technology. None of their monitoring equipment was designed to detect the specific type of quantum resonance that Elena's team was generating deep underground. In the GPA databases, Earth remained classified as a Level 2 developing world, expected to achieve fusion power within the next century and interstellar travel within the next millennium. There was no reason to think otherwise. After all, every other species in the galaxy had followed roughly the same technological progression. Nuclear fission led to fusion power, which led to advanced material science, which led to early space travel, which eventually led to faster-than-light theory, and finally to working interstellar drives. The idea that a species might completely bypass several stages of development, that they might achieve space-folding technology before they had even established permanent colonies on other worlds in their own system, was so unlikely that no one had bothered to prepare for it. Dr. Kethvar filed her monthly reports on Sector 7G Minor, noting the continued primitive development of the human species. Chemical rockets, radio communications, and the persistent international conflicts that characterize pre-spaceflight civilizations. The unusual energy readings she had detected months earlier had not repeated, leading her to conclude that they had indeed been some form of weapons testing. Ambassador Velthar reviewed her reports with satisfaction. His assessment of human potential had been correct. They remained trapped on their single world, making slow progress toward basic fusion technology while wasting enormous resources on entertainment, military spending, and consumer goods. It would be centuries before they posed any kind of challenge to the established galactic order. Neither of them had any idea that in a facility hidden beneath the Australian outback, Elena Rodriguez was preparing for the first full-scale test of humanity's greatest achievement. The wormhole generator stretched across a chamber the size of an aircraft hangar, its components humming with barely contained energy. Banks of quantum field stabilizers lined the walls, and in the center of the room, a perfect circle of empty space waited to become humanity's first doorway to the stars. "All systems are green," reported Dr. Park from the control room. "Quantum field generators are stable, power systems are operating within normal parameters, and the target coordinates are locked in." Elena stood before the activation console, her hand hovering over the control that would change humanity's destiny forever. Target? Proxima Centauri system, 4.3 light-years from Earth. Will establish the tunnel for exactly 30 seconds, then shut it down. Safety teams? All personnel evacuated from the target area. Emergency shutdown systems are armed and ready. Elena took a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to take humanity's first step into the wider universe. Let's make it count." She pressed the activation control. Space folded. Breaking all the rules. The wormhole opened with no fanfare, no dramatic light show, no thunderous sound. One moment there was empty air in the center of the chamber, and the next moment there was a perfect circle of absolute darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. Through that darkness, scientists could see stars that were 4.3 light-years away, visible as clearly as if they were looking through a window. "Tunnel is stable," reported Dr. Park, his voice tight with excitement and barely controlled fear. "Duration 28 seconds and counting. Quantum field coherence is holding at 97%. Elena stared at their achievement, feeling a mixture of pride and terror. They had just connected Earth to another star system instantaneously. The implications were staggering. If they could maintain the tunnel, if they could scale up the technology, if they could control the destination precisely, then humanity had just leapfrogged thousands of years of expected technological development. "Shut it down," she ordered as the 30-second mark approached. The wormhole collapsed as silently as it had opened, leaving only empty air and the lingering smell of ozone. But in those 30 seconds, everything had changed. Humanity was no longer trapped in their solar system. They were no longer dependent on chemical rockets and decades-long journeys to reach other worlds. In 30 seconds, they had become an interstellar species. 6 months later, Captain Marcus Webb floated in the pilot seat of the Pathfinder, humanity's first interstellar vessel. The ship was small by the standards Elena hoped they would eventually achieve, but it was the largest object they had successfully sent through a wormhole tunnel. Behind him, 3 other crew members monitored systems that had never been tested in actual interstellar flight. "Control, this is Pathfinder," Marcus spoke into his headset. "We're ready for transit to Proxima Centauri." Elena's voice crackled through the speakers from the control room back on Earth. "Understood, Pathfinder. Tunnel will open in T-minus 60 seconds. Remember, this is a reconnaissance mission only. You jump there, take readings, and come back immediately." "Copy that, Control. Though I have to say, it still doesn't feel real." Marcus looked out through the ship's viewport at the tunnel generator that surrounded them. In less than a minute, they would travel further than any human had ever traveled, reaching another star system in minutes instead of millennia. The technology seemed like magic, even to someone who understood the basic principles behind it. "Tunnel opening in 10 seconds, announced Dr. Park. "All systems green." The familiar circle of darkness appeared in front of them, but this time it was large enough for their ship to pass through. Marcus could see stars on the other side, constellations that would be visible from the Proxima Centauri system. "Here we go," he whispered, and engaged the ship's thrusters. The transit took 4.3 minutes. Not 4.3 years at light speed, not 4.3 decades with conventional rockets. 4.3 minutes to cross the vast emptiness between star systems. When they emerged on the other side, Marcus and his crew became the first humans to see another star up close, the first to travel beyond the solar system that had been humanity's entire universe for their entire existence. "My God," whispered Dr. Sarah Martinez, the mission's astrophysicist. "We're really here. We're actually in another star system." Marcus activated the ship's communication array. "Control, this is Pathfinder. Transit successful. We have arrived at Proxima Centauri and all systems are functioning normally, but their celebration was interrupted by an alarm from the ship's sensor array." Dr. Martinez frowned at her displays. "Marcus, I'm picking up something unusual. There's an artificial structure about 2 million kilometers away." "Artificial?" "Definitely. It's too regular to be natural, and it's broadcasting some kind of signal." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. They had known this moment might come, but that didn't make it any less shocking. "We're not alone." The structure that appeared on their main screen was unlike anything in Earth's databases. It looked like a massive crystal formation, but its surfaces were too perfect, too geometric to be natural. Strange appendages extended from various points along its length, and the whole thing pulsed with a rhythmic blue light. "It's a research station," Dr. Martinez reported after studying the sensor. "Readings. The energy signature suggests some kind of scientific facility." "Are they scanning us?" "Unknown, but I think they know we're here." Meanwhile, aboard the Proxima research station, Dr. Kethvar stared at her displays in complete bewilderment. The automated sensors had detected an impossible energy signature, the sudden appearance of an artificial object that shouldn't exist, and readings that defied everything she knew about the local system. "Computer, run a full diagnostic on the sensor array," she commanded. "Diagnostic complete. All systems functioning within normal parameters." "Then explain how a starship just materialized 2 million kilometers from our position." "Unknown. The vessel appears to have arrived via spatial fold technology." Kethvar felt a chill run through her. Spatial fold technology was theoretical at best, and the energy requirements were so enormous that only the most advanced civilizations could even consider attempting it. But the readings were clear. Something had opened a tunnel through space itself. Computer, identify the vessel's origin. Configuration unknown. Technology signatures do not match any known civilization in the galactic database. Kethvar activated the station's communication array. Protocol required that she report any unknown vessels immediately, but she wanted to understand what she was dealing with first. Unknown vessel, this is Dr. Kethvar of the Galactic Prosperity Alliance Research Station Alpha Centauri 7. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The response came in heavily accented galactic standard. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. We're conducting a scientific survey mission. Earth? Kethvar checked her database. You mean the planet in Sector 7G Minor? If that's what you call our system, then yes. Kethvar stared at her communication display. The humans weren't supposed to have interstellar travel for at least another 1,000 years. They weren't supposed to have spatial fold technology ever. According to every model of species development, what she was seeing was impossible. Captain Webb, our records indicate your species achieved controlled nuclear fission approximately 70 years ago. How did you develop faster than light travel? A pause. We call it the quantum tunnel drive. Dr. Elena Rodriguez developed the theoretical framework, and our team built the first working prototype about 6 months ago. 6 months? Kethvar's voice rose in disbelief. Captain, most species require centuries to progress from nuclear fission to interstellar travel. Your advancement rate is unprecedented. We tend to work fast when we put our minds to something. Kethvar activated her personal recording system. This conversation would need to be reviewed by the highest levels of the GPA. Captain Webb, would you be willing to meet in person? I need to verify that your ship and technology are real. Agreed. We'll meet at the midpoint between our vessels. 2 hours later, Kethvar floated in the docking bay of her research station, watching the airlock cycle open to admit the first humans she had ever encountered. She had studied their species from a distance, but meeting them in person was an entirely different experience. Captain Webb was tall by human standards, with short dark hair and intelligent brown eyes. His companions were similarly unremarkable by galactic standards, but Kethvar found herself fascinated by the small details. The way they moved, the expressions on their faces, the casual confidence they displayed despite being in an alien environment for the first time. Dr. Kethvar, Marcus said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. It's an honor to meet you. You're the first non-human we've ever encountered. Kethvar carefully shook the offered hand, surprised by the firmness of the human's grip. The honor is mine, Captain, though I must say your species has presented us with a complete impossibility. Impossibility? Captain, faster-than-light travel requires mastery of dimensional mathematics, quantum field theory, and exotic matter manipulation. These are advanced sciences that most species don't develop for centuries after achieving nuclear power. Yet your species has accomplished all of this in less than a human lifetime. Dr. Martinez spoke up. We approached the problem differently. Instead of trying to travel faster than light, Dr. Rodriguez figured out how to fold space itself. Fold space? Kethvar repeated slowly. Captain, the energy requirements for spatial manipulation should be beyond your civilization's capacity by several orders of magnitude. Marcus smiled. We're pretty good at making things work with limited resources. Over the next hour, Kethvar listened to explanations that challenged everything she thought she knew about technological development. The humans had bypassed fusion power entirely using advanced battery technology and quantum field effects to power their spatial fold generators. They had developed new materials science by accident while trying to solve engineering problems. They had achieved in months what most civilizations required decades to accomplish. This is not how advancement works, Kethvar kept saying. There are prerequisites, mathematical foundations that must be established, safety protocols that require generations of testing. Dr. Rodriguez says most problems have simpler solutions if you think about them from a different angle, Marcus replied. Different angle. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Captain, your species has revolutionized our understanding of technological progression. This information must be shared with the Galactic Prosperity Alliance immediately. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the research station. Kethvar's communication system crackled to life with transmissions from across the Proxima system. Dr. Kethvar, this is Survey Ship Meridian. We have multiple contacts appearing throughout the system. Unknown vessels are materializing at 17 different locations. Kethvar and the humans rushed to the station's observation deck, where they could see new stars appearing in the sky, but these weren't stars. They were human ships, dozens of them, emerging from quantum tunnels all around the Proxima Centauri system. Captain Webb, Kethvar said slowly, how many ships does your species possess? Marcus activated his communication device. Pathfinder to Earth Control. Request immediate status update on fleet deployment. Elena's voice came through clearly despite the interstellar distance. Pathfinder, we have 43 ships conducting simultaneous surveys of 17 different star systems. We wanted to gather as much information as possible before making formal contact with galactic civilization. Kethvar felt her worldview crumbling. 17 star systems, 43 ships. The humans had gone from a single prototype to a full interstellar fleet in 6 months. The expansion rate was beyond unprecedented. It was physically impossible according to every known model of species development. Dr. Kethvar, Marcus said gently, I think it's time we had a larger conversation. Our governments would like to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Prosperity Alliance. As Kethvar watched human ships appear throughout the system, she realized that everything the GPA thought they knew about the humans was wrong. They weren't a primitive species slowly working toward basic spaceflight. They were a revolutionary force that had rewritten the rules of technological advancement. She activated her emergency communication system. This is Dr. Kethvar at Alpha Centauri 7. I need to speak with Ambassador Velthar immediately. We have a situation that requires the immediate attention of the full GPA Council. The response came back within minutes. Dr. Kethvar, this is Ambassador Velthar. What is the nature of your emergency? Ambassador, the humans have achieved interstellar travel. A long pause. That's impossible. They have 43 ships conducting surveys in 17 different star systems. Their technology appears to be based on spatial folding rather than traditional faster-than-light propulsion. Another pause, longer this time. Doctor, are you certain of these readings? I'm standing next to Captain Marcus Webb of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. The humans have requested formal diplomatic contact with the GPA Council. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. When Ambassador Velthar finally responded, his voice carried a tone Kethvar had never heard before. Uncertainty. Dr. Kethvar, maintain contact with the human representatives, but do not share any classified information. I'm calling an emergency session of the GPA Council. We need to determine how to respond to this development. As the communication ended, Kethvar looked out at the human ships that had appeared throughout the system. Each one represented a revolution in her understanding of what was possible. Each one challenged thousands of years of galactic civilization's assumptions about species development. Captain Webb, she said quietly, I think you're going to change everything. Marcus nodded, looking out at the stars that suddenly seemed much closer than they had just hours before. We tend to do that. Rewriting the stars. The emergency session of the Galactic Prosperity Alliance Council convened within 18 hours of Dr. Kethvar's report. Representatives from 847 different civilizations filled the great crystal dome of Nexus Prime, their voices creating a cacophony of confusion, concern, and barely controlled panic. In over 10,000 years of galactic civilization, nothing like this had ever happened. Ambassador Velthar stood at his podium, reviewing reports that made no sense according to everything he understood about technological development. The humans had not only achieved interstellar travel, they had done so using principles that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic science. Chancellor Nexus, the ancient being who presided over emergency sessions, called for order. His voice, amplified by crystalline resonators, echoed through the massive chamber. Representatives of the Galactic Prosperity Alliance, we face an unprecedented situation. The species designated as humans from Sector 7G Minor have achieved faster-than-light travel using technology unknown to galactic science. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representative Korex of the Trading Consortium demanded to know how such a development could have been missed. Admiral Thexani of the Defense Corps wanted to know if the humans posed a military threat. Dr. Yilmara of the Scientific Collective was practically vibrating with excitement at the prospect of studying human technology. Order, Chancellor Nexus commanded. We will hear a full report from Ambassador Velthar and Dr. Kethvar before proceeding to discussion. Velthar activated his speaking platform reluctantly. Admitting error was not something that came easily to a representative of the Xenathi Confederacy. Honored colleagues, I must acknowledge that our assessment of human potential was incomplete. The energy readings that Dr. Kethvar reported 6 months ago were apparently related to their development of spatial fold technology. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Xenathi were known for their careful analysis and conservative predictions. If they had missed something this significant, it called into question their entire approach to monitoring developing species. Dr. Kethvar stepped forward to address the council. Honored representatives, I have personally met with human representatives and examined their technology. Their approach to faster-than-light travel is unlike anything in our databases. Instead of manipulating exotic matter or creating subspace fields, they fold space itself using quantum resonance effects. That's impossible, declared Dr. Yilmara. The energy requirements for spatial manipulation are beyond the capacity of any civilization below level 7 development. Nevertheless, Kethvar replied, they have achieved exactly that. More importantly, they have done so using principles that we never considered because we assumed they were impossible. Admiral Thexani stood to address the council. What are their military capabilities? Do they pose a threat to galactic security? Their technology could revolutionize warfare, Kethvar admitted. Instantaneous travel across interstellar distances would make traditional fleet movements obsolete. However, their representatives have expressed only peaceful intentions. Peaceful intentions mean nothing if their capabilities exceed our defensive measures, the Admiral replied grimly. Chancellor Nexus raised one crystalline hand for silence. Dr. Kethvar, what do the humans want? They have requested formal membership in the Galactic Prosperity Alliance. They wish to share their technology in exchange for access to galactic knowledge and resources. The chamber exploded in debate. Some representatives saw the humans as a threat to be contained. Others viewed them as a potential source of revolutionary technology. Still others worried about the precedent of accepting a species that had bypassed normal development patterns. Representative Zordak of the Military Union spoke first. These humans are dangerous. They have developed technology that could destabilize the entire galactic order. We should demand they share their secrets immediately, under threat of military action if necessary. That would be a violation of every principle the Alliance stands for, countered Representative Ael Tran of the Diplomatic Corps. We cannot threaten a species for the crime of being innovative. Dr. Yilmara activated her speaking platform. Honored colleagues, we are looking at this situation incorrectly. The humans have achieved something that our greatest scientists believed was impossible. Instead of fearing them, we should be learning from them. Their approach to problem solving could advance galactic civilization by millennia. Or it could destroy it, Admiral Thexani replied. Technology without wisdom has ended civilizations before. The debate continued for hours. 3. Distinct factions emerged. Those who wanted to suppress human technology, those who wanted to study it, and those who wanted to embrace the humans as equals. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. By a margin of just 37 votes, the council agreed to invite human representatives to address the full assembly. It was a decision that would change the course of galactic history. 3 days later, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the center of the Great Crystal Dome, looking up at representatives from nearly 1,000 different worlds. She wore a simple blue uniform that looked primitive compared to the elaborate ceremonial robes favored by most galactic diplomats, but her presence commanded attention. Honored representatives of the Galactic Prosperity Alliance, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. I am Dr. Elena Rodriguez, and I represent the people of Earth. We come before you not as conquerors or supplicants, but as neighbors who wish to join the galactic community. She activated a holographic projector that displayed the mathematical framework underlying human spatial fold technology. The equations filled the air above the assembly, showing calculations that merged quantum mechanics with gravitational theory in ways that had never been attempted by galactic science. 6 months ago, humanity achieved something that your scientists believed was impossible. We did not do this because we are superior to other species, but because we approached the problem from a different direction. Where you saw insurmountable barriers, we saw engineering challenges. Representative Zordak stood up. Dr. Rodriguez, your technology could destabilize the balance of power that has maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. What assurances can you give us that humanity will not use these capabilities to dominate other species? Elena smiled. Representative Zordak, I can give you the same assurance that any honest person can give about the future, none at all. But I can tell you what we have done so far. In the 3 months since we began interstellar exploration, we have made contact with 47 different species. We have offered technological assistance to 18 developing worlds. We have shared our manufacturing techniques with civilizations that requested them. We have asked for nothing in return except friendship and knowledge. Dr. Yilmara activated her speaking platform. Dr. Rodriguez, how did your species develop spatial fold technology so quickly? Our models suggest it should have taken you centuries to progress from nuclear fission to interstellar travel. We didn't follow your models, Elena replied simply. We've never seen a problem we couldn't solve if we thought about it long enough and hard enough. When I started working on faster than light travel, I didn't try to make ships go faster. I tried to make the distance shorter. But the mathematical complexity alone should have required decades of theoretical development, Dr. Yilmara protested. It would have, if we had approached it like mathematicians. Instead, we approached it like engineers. We built small prototypes, tested them, learned from the failures, and improved the design. We didn't need to understand everything about spatial mechanics to make it work. Chancellor Nexus spoke into the silence that followed. Dr. Rodriguez, what does humanity want from the galactic community? We want to be part of something greater than ourselves, Elena replied. We want to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to the advancement of all civilizations. We want to help solve the problems that have puzzled the galaxy for millennia. And we want other species to help us solve ours. And what do you offer in return? Asked Representative Aeltron. Elena's smile was the same one she had worn in her laboratory when she first opened a hole in space. We offer what we've always offered: innovation, determination, and the absolute conviction that any problem can be solved if you approach it from the right angle. The questions continued for hours. Representatives wanted to know about human manufacturing techniques, their approach to scientific research, their social structures, and their long-term intentions. Elena answered each question honestly, describing a species that approached challenges differently than anyone else in the galaxy. Finally, Chancellor Nexus called for a recess. The Council will deliberate on humanity's request for membership. Dr. Rodriguez, you and your delegation are welcome to observe the proceedings. Elena took her seat in the observers section next to Captain Webb and Dr. Kethvar, who had become an unofficial liaison between humanity and the GPA. How do you think it went? Marcus asked quietly. Hard to say, Elena replied. They're scared of us, fascinated by us, and confused by us. That's probably the most honest reaction we could hope for. The debate that followed was intense. Representatives argued about the precedent of accepting a species that had bypassed normal development patterns, the potential benefits of human technology, and the risks of changing established galactic order. But their discussion was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout Nexus Prime. Admiral Thexani received a priority communication that made her expression grim. Chancellor, we have a situation. The Zerion Empire has launched a surprise attack on the Kolvari Republic. They're using some kind of new weapon technology that's overwhelming Kolvari defenses. Elena stood up. Chancellor, if I may, humanity offers our assistance to the Kolvari Republic. Dr. Rodriguez, the Zerion Empire fields over 2,000 warships. What could 43 human vessels possibly do against such a force? Elena's expression grew serious. We can do what humans do best. We can improvise. 6 hours later, the Zerion Imperial fleet was in complete disarray. Admiral Kexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, trying to understand how his carefully planned invasion had turned into a nightmare of confusion and impossible tactical situations. The human ships had appeared throughout the battle zone using their spatial fold technology, but instead of engaging in traditional space combat, they had done something unprecedented. They were using their portal generators as weapons. Sir, his tactical officer reported, his voice tight with panic. The humans have redirected our plasma barrage back at our own ships. They opened portals in front of our weapons and redirected the energy streams at our fleet. That's impossible. Confirmed, sir. The human vessels are creating temporary portals that redirect our attacks. We're essentially firing at ourselves. Kexthor watched in horror as his most advanced dreadnought exploded under the impact of its own weapons, redirected through a human portal that had appeared and disappeared in seconds. The humans weren't just using portal technology for transportation, they were using it to turn the Zerion fleet's superior firepower against itself. Sir, we're also detecting human ships appearing inside our defensive perimeter. They're bypassing our shields entirely by opening portals inside our formations. Open a communication channel to the human commander, Kexthor ordered. Captain Webb's voice filled the bridge. Admiral Kexthor, this is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to assist the Kolvari Republic in repelling your invasion. Captain Webb, your tactics violate every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral, you started a war against a peaceful species. We're just finishing it efficiently. Kexthor looked at his tactical display, where over half his fleet was either destroyed or disabled. The humans had turned what should have been an easy conquest into a devastating defeat using technology that made traditional military doctrine obsolete. What are your terms for ceasefire? He asked quietly. Withdraw all Xerion forces from Kolvari space immediately, provide compensation for damages caused by your invasion, and agree to binding arbitration for any future disputes. Kexthor had no choice. Agreed. The news of the Battle of Kolvari reached Nexus Prime within hours. The humans had not only defeated a superior force, they had done so while taking 0 casualties and using tactics that no military strategist had ever conceived. Chancellor Nexus called the council back into session. Representatives, in light of recent events, we must reconsider humanity's application for membership. The vote, when it came, was overwhelming. By a margin of over 90%, the Galactic Prosperity Alliance accepted humanity as a full member species, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Elena stood before the assembly once more, but this time as an official representative of a galactic civilization. Honored colleagues, humanity accepts membership in the Galactic Prosperity Alliance. We pledge to work for the betterment of all species and the advancement of galactic civilization. Ambassador Velthar approached her after the session ended. The being who had once dismissed humanity as primitive now stood before their representative with something approaching admiration. Dr. Rodriguez, I owe you and your species an apology. I was wrong about humanity's potential. Elena extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Ambassador Velthar, we all make mistakes based on incomplete information. The important thing is learning from them. Velthar carefully shook the offered hand. What will humanity do now? Elena looked out through the crystal dome at the stars beyond. What we've always done. We'll explore, we'll learn, and we'll help solve problems that everyone else thinks are impossible. 1 year later, the first human-alien joint research facility opened in orbit around Proxima Centauri. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Kethvar led combined teams making discoveries that revolutionized galactic science. Human portal technology, combined with alien materials science and energy systems, produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The manufacturing techniques that had allowed humanity to build a fleet in months were now being used throughout the galaxy, increasing production efficiency by hundreds of %. Human approaches to problem-solving were being taught in academic institutions across thousands of worlds. But perhaps most importantly, the rigid assumptions about species development that had limited galactic thinking for millennia were finally being questioned. The humans had proven that there was more than one path to the stars, more than one way to approach the challenges of advanced civilization. In the depths of space, where the barriers between galaxies had once seemed insurmountable, human and alien engineers worked together on humanity's most ambitious project yet, a ship designed to make the journey to Andromeda not in millions of years but in months. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the construction bay, watching as the massive vessel took shape. It was a fusion of human innovation and galactic knowledge, representing the best of both approaches to solving impossible problems. Think it will work? Asked Dr. Kethvar, who had become Elena's closest collaborator in the joint research program. Elena smiled. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Captain Marcus Webb joined them at the observation window. The test flight is scheduled for next month. We'll try a short jump first, just to the edge of the galaxy and back. And if it works? Kethvar asked. Then we'll have opened a door to an entire universe of possibilities, Elena replied. New civilizations, new knowledge, new problems to solve. She looked out at the ship that represented humanity's next great leap. You know what I love most about this project? What's that? Marcus asked. 6 months ago, everyone said it was impossible. Yesterday we proved them wrong. Tomorrow we'll do it again. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had taken their place among the stars not by following the established path, but by creating their own. They had shown that the impossible was just another word for hasn't been done yet. And in the vast universe beyond, there were endless impossibilities waiting to be made possible, one breakthrough at a time. The end.